My name is Elena Torres, and I'm 22 years old. The night it all snapped into focus, the air in our house felt like plastic wrap, tight, transparent, suffocating. From the top of the ramp my father grudgingly installed after the accident, I could see the family gathered around the dining table like actors waiting for their cue. Mom twisted her wedding band as if it might unscrew time. Victoria, my older sister, 6 months pregnant and perpetually spotlighted, had that performative, serene smile that always meant something ruthless was about to be asked and called love. Elena, Mom said softly, not looking at me, we need to talk about the 15th. My graduation, I said. What about it? Victoria exhaled, as though I'd disappointed the room already. That's actually why we're here, she said, smoothing a palm over her dress. The Scottsdale resort has a cancellation that day. It's perfect for my baby shower. Everyone can make it. I let the words hang there. It's the same trick I learned in physical therapy. Sometimes you don't push back. You let gravity reveal who falls. My graduation, I repeated. You've known the date for months. The venue is only available then, she rushed on, and timing with my friends is... Perfect, Dad finished for her, palm hitting the table hard enough to rattle our chipped mugs. Your sister's having her first child. That's more important than some ceremony. Some ceremony? The words slipped out before I could iron them flat. I studied 4 years for that some ceremony. Late nights, group projects where I had to prove I wasn't a pity assignment. I made the dean's list 3 times. Mom's voice came fragile and bright, the way people speak at funerals. Family should come first, Elena. Victoria needs our full support. I glanced at Austin, our youngest, 18 and fluent in survival by silence. He stared at his phone like it could fold him out of the room. I'm not missing my graduation, I said evenly. Vic, I love you. Pick another weekend, or I won't be there. Victoria's eyes filled, her favorite weather system. I visited you after your accident, she said, already trembling. Twice, I said. In 6 months. One of those you spent complaining about the fluorescent lights. She flinched. Dad's jaw squared. I could feel the script tightening. Me as the ungrateful one, the burden, the constant reminder that the world isn't safe or neat. Young lady, Dad said, standing so quickly his chair scraped a bruise into the floor. You will go to your sister's shower, or there will be consequences. I'm 22, I said calmly. I pay rent here. I buy my own groceries. The only conversation we've had for months is how the ramp ruined the look of the house. How dare you, he began. How dare I tell the truth? My voice was too steady. It scared me a little. When was the last time any of you showed up for me? The tech symposium? The award ceremony? Or did Victoria's hair appointment outrank me again? It was for engagement photos, Victoria snapped. Besides, the point, I said, is that I'm done shrinking to fit. Silence stamped the room. It was the kind of silence that makes you think God is holding his breath. I maneuvered my chair back from the table. My graduation is on the 15th. You're invited. I'm going. End of discussion. End of nothing, Dad said. He pointed toward my room like he was assigning a punishment. You will show up for family. I went down the ramp, the rubber grip of my palms familiar against the push rims. In my room, my cap and gown hung like a promise I'd made to myself in a hospital bed. If I get another chance, I won't waste it performing gratitude for people who only notice me when I'm convenient. I was ironing the gown later when he filled the doorway. He has a way of making doorways feel like locks. Last chance, he said. Come to the shower. Dad, I said, I'm not cutting myself into pieces to feed everyone else. Not anymore. You're selfish, he said. Family comes first. I am family, I said softly. I come first to me. His smile was brief and crooked. We'll see about that. He turned away. I heard the steps, the heavier angle of them, heading toward the garage. A beat later. Metal on concrete, a reverberation that didn't belong to our house. Another strike, and another. My fingers slipped on the wheel as I pivoted fast, adrenaline sharp enough to nick my breath. The kitchen blurred. Mom stood by the garage door with her hand over her mouth, pupils blown wide. Dad, I called, and it wasn't a question. The garage smelled like hot dust and old oil. My good chair, my chair I'd saved 2 years for, customizing every inch until it felt like extension rather than equipment, lay half-twisted on the concrete. One wheel was off, the frame bent, my pressure cushion torn open, foam spilling like a yellow wound. My father held a sledgehammer. If you can't get to graduation, he said, chest heaving, you'll have to come to the shower instead. For a heartbeat, I felt nothing. Then I felt everything at once. The hospital hallway after the accident, the first time I learned to transfer alone, the small private joy of cruising open campus at golden hour, my life as geometry and will. He'd reduced it to debris. I started, but the word insane felt too clean, too tidy for the animal thing he'd done. Mom grabbed his arm. Robert, oh my God. He shrugged her off, wiped his forehead with the edge of his shirt like he'd finished yard work. It's just a chair, he said. We'll get another when she apologizes and behaves. It's not just a chair, I said. It's my legs. It's my independence. It's $3,000 I earned. He rolled his eyes. You live under my roof. I steadied my hands, lifted my phone. The screen looked calm. Icons, battery percentage, the familiar white field of possibility, while my heart beat its fists against my ribs. What are you doing? Mom asked. What you should have done years ago, I said. I'm reporting a crime. Dad took one step toward me. You wouldn't dare. I hit call. When the operator answered, my voice arrived clean and clear, like it had been waiting for this exact path through the world. Yes, I said. I need to report the destruction of mobility equipment. My father just smashed my wheelchair with a sledgehammer. The next 20 minutes were logistics and lightning. I took photos of the damage from every angle. I pulled up the receipt, the bank record with my name on it. I opened the Ring app, fingers steady now, and saved the footage of him rolling my chair down the hallway into the garage. Denise answered on the first ring and said, I'm on my way, and I didn't realize until then that I'd been bracing for that voice, someone who didn't make me small to feel tall. Sirens approached, and then were everywhere, blue and red strobing across the garage ceiling like bad holiday lights. When the officer stepped inside, I could see all the truths lined up behind this one. All the small humiliations, the casual cruelty dressed as caretaking, the way they'd tried to shape my life into a cautionary tale instead of a future. Dad started loudly with family matter and my property, but paperwork is a kind of spine when you've been asked to bend. I had mine. Officer Rodriguez took notes. His partner photographed the serial number on the ruined frame, the tears in the cushion, the hammer asleep by the wall. Ma'am, Rodriguez said gently, do you want to press charges? I looked at my father. He stared back, unblinking, like the sheer force of his wanting could vacuum me back into the old obedient shape. Yes, I said, I do. And for the first time in years, I felt the exact weight of my name in my mouth and knew it could carry me. By the time they led my father out in handcuffs, the neighborhood had already gathered on their porches. Porch lights blinked on, one by one, faces hovering in the dark like floating verdicts. The metallic click of the cuffs sounded sharper than the sirens ever did. Mom sobbed into her hands, whispering, You didn't have to do this, Elena. Yes, I said quietly, I did. Denise and her boyfriend, Jordan, arrived just as the squad car pulled away. Denise dropped to her knees beside my chair, her hair falling forward. Are you okay? Oh my God, Elena. I'm fine, I lied, though my hands were trembling. Jordan crouched beside the wrecked wheelchair, whistling low. He really did a number on it. This is custom built? Yeah, titanium frame. 2 years of saving and working nights for it. Don't worry, he said. I know someone who runs a medical supply company. We'll get you a loaner chair for graduation. I nodded, unable to speak. The weight of the night pressed down, the sirens fading, my mother's muffled sobs, the cold draft sweeping through the open garage door. Back inside, the living room looked like an abandoned film set after the actors walked off. Empty coffee cups, half-eaten dinner, chairs skewed. The silence throbbed. I went to my room, shut the door, and texted Denise again. Thank you for coming. Her reply came instantly. We'll pick you up tomorrow morning at 8. Don't you dare miss that stage. That night, sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hammer rise again. When I finally dozed off near dawn, it was to the sound of phantom metal hitting concrete. At 6:30 a.m., Jordan's friend arrived in a white van. He unloaded a loaner wheelchair. A bit heavier, the seat too firm, but functional. It would do. As I rolled toward the mirror, adjusting my cap and gown, my reflection startled me. There was a defiance in my face I hadn't seen in years. For once, I didn't look like the family's problem. I looked like my own person. When Denise saw me, her eyes shone. You look incredible. Ready? Ready. The drive to Arizona State University was a blur of sunlight and nerves. When we reached the auditorium, the air hummed with excitement, families clapping, cameras flashing, names echoing over loudspeakers. As they called Elena Torres, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, magna cum laude, I wheeled across the stage under a beam of morning light. The crowd roared. Denise and Jordan were on their feet, cheering so loud the dean actually smiled. Professors who knew my story clapped until their palms turned red. For that single moment, everything, the broken chair, the family silence, the shouting, fell away. There was only the stage, the diploma, and the electric truth of I did it. After the ceremony, Denise dragged me to my favorite brunch spot, the Breakfast Club, where the smell of coffee and cinnamon cut through the adrenaline haze. We were halfway through blueberry pancakes when Denise froze, phone in hand. "You're going to want to see this." She turned the screen toward me. It was Victoria's Instagram post, a pastel photo of her baby shower at the resort. Her caption read, "Some people choose selfishness over family. While my father sits in jail, I choose love and forgiveness. Hashtag family first, hashtag pray for him." Below it, hundreds of comments had exploded. "Wait, your dad was arrested for destroying your sister's wheelchair? He smashed her mobility chair because she wanted to graduate? This is abuse, not family drama. Hashtag Team Elena all the way." Jordan laughed under his breath. Guess the internet has opinions. I scrolled further. The story had already been shared across Chandler community pages. Someone uploaded the ring footage. My father rolling the wheelchair down the hallway, then the sledgehammer's first hit. There were thousands of views, dozens of reposts, hashtags multiplying like wildfire. "Local banker destroys disabled daughter's wheelchair," one headline read. "Police confirm arrest." I stared at the screen. Oh my God. Denise reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Let them see. Let them all see." By evening, everything had changed. Mom called, her voice raw. "Elena, please, the neighbors are talking. The video's everywhere. Take it down. Think of our reputation." "I didn't post it," I said. "The truth did." "Your father could lose his job." "Good," I whispered. "Maybe then he'll understand what losing something feels like." Before she could answer, I hung up. That night, my inbox flooded. Messages from classmates, professors, even strangers. Some offered support. Others shared their own stories of family cruelty, masked as love. Then, around midnight, a new notification appeared. A stranger named Grace M. had created a GoFundMe titled "Help Elena Rebuild Her Freedom." By the time I clicked, it had already raised $2,400. I covered my mouth with my hand, shaking. I didn't know these people, but they saw me, not as broken, not as pitiful, just as someone who deserved better. The next morning, Jordan showed up with coffee and grim news. "Your dad's boss saw the video. He's suspended pending investigation. Probably done for good." A long breath left my body, relief tangled with guilt until it felt like static. "He brought this on himself," Denise said firmly. "Don't you dare carry that for him." I nodded. Still, that night, as I packed for a few days at Denise's apartment, I couldn't stop glancing at the space where my wheelchair had once stood, its absence echoing like a missing heartbeat. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the emptiness. It felt like possibility. The next week felt like living inside a storm that wouldn't stop mutating. Every time I thought it was over, a new headline appeared, another video reshared, another opinion voiced. By Monday morning, my father's name was everywhere. Robert Torres, vice president at Wells Fargo, accused of destroying disabled daughter's wheelchair. His photo, pulled straight from the company website, was plastered on Facebook groups and local news thumbnails. At first, I didn't know how to feel. Vindicated? Angry? Hollow? Maybe all of it. Mom called again, her voice thin and desperate. "Elena, he's been suspended indefinitely. They're talking about termination. Please, you have to drop the charges." I stared out the window of Denise's apartment, watching morning light pour through the blinds like thin blades. "Mom," I said, steady but tired. "He destroyed my wheelchair to control me. That's not a mistake. That's abuse." "You've destroyed our family's reputation." "No," I said. "He did that the moment he picked up that hammer." She hung up crying. A few hours later, I met with Assistant District Attorney Lisa Hernandez, a composed woman with kind eyes who didn't treat me like a tragedy. "Your father's actions qualify for enhanced penalties under Arizona's disability rights statute," she explained. "He didn't just destroy property. He intentionally destroyed mobility equipment. That's an aggravated form of abuse." "Will he go to prison?" I asked quietly. "That depends on the judge," she said, "but the evidence is strong. video footage, receipts, witness statements. You've done everything right. Everything right? So why did it still feel like I was breaking something sacred? That night, as I sat reviewing housing options in Portland, the city where my new tech job waited, Denise leaned against my shoulder. You really going through with the move? Yes. I start in 2 months. Found an accessible apartment near downtown. She smiled. You deserve that fresh start. Just don't close yourself off completely, okay? I won't, I said, though a part of me wasn't sure I could open up again. That was when Cameron entered the picture. He'd been in a few of my computer science courses. Tall, calm, always the quiet one who stayed behind after class to double-check code. We'd chatted occasionally, but I hadn't thought much beyond friendship. After the story went viral, he texted me. Hey, Elena, I saw what happened. I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have gone through that alone. Want to grab coffee sometime? Something in his tone felt different. No pity, no awkward sympathy, just simple respect. We met that weekend at a cafe in downtown Tempe. He brought his old laptop and asked me to help him debug a project as an excuse to hang out. I laughed for the first time in weeks. Clever, I said, sipping my latte. He grinned. Hey, I work in marketing. I'm good at making things look casual. That day I realized I could breathe again without fear of judgment. But the peace didn't last long. 2 days later, I ran into Leah, Cameron's ex-girlfriend, outside the cafe. She looked me up and down, her eyes flicking briefly toward my chair. So you're the girl from the video, she said, her tone halfway between curiosity and venom. Cameron mentioned you. I blinked. Oh, he did? Yeah, be careful with him, she said, smiling like a warning dressed in kindness. He has this hero complex, likes to save people who look fragile. I held her gaze. Then he's wasting his time, I said. I'm not broken. Her smile faltered. We'll see. When she walked away, my pulse was unsteady, not from fear, but from anger. It hit me how easily people mistake empathy for rescue or independence for defiance. Later that night, Cameron texted again. Ignore whatever Leah said. We broke up for a reason. She thrives on drama. I hesitated, then replied, I figured, don't worry. But deep down, I knew this was the start of another test. The kind where people reveal who they are when the world starts watching. Meanwhile, my family was imploding in real time. Austin texted from home. Dad's out on bail. He's furious. Mom's hiding at Aunt Gloria's. Victoria's losing sponsors for her baby vlog. People are calling her manipulative. Also, Grandma saw the footage. She said she's rewriting her will. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was poetic. The same people who once told me to put family first were now devouring each other to protect their own reputations. The GoFundMe kept growing, past $5,000, then $8,000. Messages poured in. You inspire me. I have a daughter in a wheelchair. You gave me courage. You're not alone. Each note was a thread pulling me back together. I used part of the money to order a new wheelchair, a sleeker, stronger model that folded neatly into the back of a car, my symbol of freedom, reborn. One evening, Cameron dropped by with takeout and a stack of moving boxes. Figured we could start planning your escape to Portland, he said. Escape, I repeated with a small smile. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. He helped me label the boxes, kitchen, clothes, tech gear, and by the end of the night, the apartment smelled like orange chicken and possibility. When he left, he leaned on the doorframe the same way my father used to. But instead of blocking light, Cameron's presence brought it. Portland's lucky, he said softly. They're getting someone unbreakable. I didn't reply. I just smiled because part of me finally believed him. 6 weeks later, the courtroom smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paper, the kind of sterile place where justice pretends to be simple. I'd rolled through those heavy oak doors half expecting my hands to shake, but they didn't. Maybe I'd run out of fear. Maybe I'd just traded it for clarity. My father sat at the defense table in a navy suit that suddenly looked too big for him. His hair had gone grayer, his jaw tense enough to splinter bone. Mom sat behind him, clutching tissues she never used. Victoria was there too, visibly pregnant now, one manicured hand resting on her stomach like a shield. The prosecutor, Ms. Hernandez, started with quiet precision. She played the ring footage for the court. The hallway, the garage, the swing of the hammer. Each clang echoed through the speakers, and no one breathed. When she asked me to take the stand, I locked my wheels beside the microphone, straightened my back, and told the story. Not with tears, not with anger, but with the steady voice of someone who had finally stopped apologizing. When the judge, Maria Santos, gave her verdict, she didn't look at me. She looked at him. "Mr. Torres," she said, "you destroyed more than property. You attempted to destroy your daughter's independence. What you did was not discipline. It was cruelty." 2 years of probation, 400 hours of community service at the Arizona Disability Advocacy Center, full restitution for the wheelchair, plus emotional damages, and a restraining order. He couldn't come within 500 feet of me. When the gavel fell, it sounded like a door closing. Outside the courthouse, sunlight hit like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. I was still processing the verdict when Victoria stepped out of the crowd, mascara already smudging. "I hope you're happy," she spat. "You ruined everything. Dad's a felon. Mom's humiliated. My marriage and is falling apart because of your choices," I cut in. "Not mine." She glared at me. "You should have protected us. Family sticks together." "When have you ever protected me, Vic?" I asked softly. "You scheduled your shower on my graduation day. You stood there while Dad smashed my chair. The only thing I did was stop pretending that was love." Her lip trembled. "You're heartless." "No," I said. "I just stopped bleeding for people who cut me." She started crying again, but this time I didn't stay to comfort her. I rolled away, the sound of my wheels smooth and certain against the concrete. The next morning, I was boxing up my things at Denise's apartment when there was a knock on the door. It was Cameron, carrying takeout coffee and a folded newspaper. He set it on the counter. The headline read, "Banker sentenced after destroying daughter's wheelchair. Community applauds. Judge's ruling." "Public opinion's definitely on your side," he said. I smiled faintly. I never wanted sides. I just wanted peace. He nodded. "Sometimes peace has to be built on ruins." I looked at him, kind eyes, steady hands, and felt the air soften. He reached for my fingers, tentative but sure. "I'm proud of you," he said. No one in my family had ever said that to me before. Moving day arrived under a pale desert dawn. Denise and Jordan helped me load the U-Haul. Each box felt like a small declaration. Clothes I chose, books I loved, life I built myself. Mom showed up just as we were closing the truck door. Her face looked older, smaller somehow. She stepped closer, holding a paper bag of tamales, the kind she used to make when things were still simple. "Elena," she whispered, "please don't leave like this. We can fix it. Family therapy, maybe. We didn't know how to handle your accident. Your father made his choices," I said quietly, "and you stood by him." Tears welled in her eyes. "We were scared." "Then you should have gotten help," I said. "You shouldn't have made me the problem." She nodded slowly, tears falling. "I'm sorry." I believed her, or at least I believed that she meant it, but it didn't change anything. "I forgive you," I said gently, "but I can't come back." We hugged, briefly, a brittle kind of love between us. Then I rolled up the ramp, into the truck, into the next chapter. 3 days later, I crossed the Oregon border under a gray sky that looked ready to rain and cleanse everything behind me. My new apartment in Portland was perfect. Ground floor, wide hallways, a kitchen I could navigate without bruising my hands. The city air smelled like rain and coffee. The job at Tech Vision Solutions was everything I'd dreamed, a company that actually valued accessibility because they lived it, not because it looked good on brochures. My manager, Helen, welcomed me with open arms. Cameron visited a month later, staying for a weekend that turned into a beginning neither of us planned, but both needed. When I told him about the restraining order, the trial, the letters from home, he didn't flinch. He just said, "You don't owe anyone your silence." And I realized I didn't. A few weeks after I settled in, I got a text from Austin. Dad started his community service, Mom's in therapy, Victoria and Kyle separated. She's 6 months along and exhausted. Grandma says she's proud of you. I smiled, tears pricking at the edges of my eyes. Then he added, "Victoria says she's naming the baby after you." I froze. Sabrina, that had been my middle name, my grandmother's choice. I didn't know if it was guilt, or a plea for redemption, or something else entirely. But I didn't reply. Not yet. That night, Cameron found me by the window, watching the rain smear the city lights into watercolor streaks. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said softly, just thinking how strange it is that destruction can make space for something better. He leaned against the window beside me, close but not crowding. "That's kind of what rebirth looks like, isn't it?" Maybe it was. A year later, the world felt entirely different. Quieter, lighter, mine. Portland had become home in ways I never expected. Mornings smelled like rain and roasted coffee. Afternoons hummed with street music and conversations that didn't revolve around what I owed anyone. I'd been promoted to senior UX designer at Tech Vision Solutions. My work focused on accessible design, making interfaces navigable for users with physical limitations. Ironically, what my father once saw as my weakness had become my strength, my specialty, my identity, my power. My coworkers didn't pity me. They respected me. When I spoke about inclusive design principles, people listened. When I rolled into a meeting, no one saw the chair first. They saw Elena. At night, my apartment was filled with warmth. Friends dropping by unannounced, laughter spilling over takeout dinners, Cameron's steady presence in the corner of it all. We weren't perfect, no relationship ever is, but with him, silence wasn't dangerous. It was peace. He'd learned the rhythm of my independence, when to offer help, when to stand back, when to simply sit beside me and breathe. One Sunday, we went hand cycling along the waterfront. The wind was sharp, the river silver under the morning sun. "Do you ever think about going back?" Cameron asked as we coasted to a stop. I looked toward the horizon where the bridges cut through the clouds. "Sometimes," I said, "but every time I do, I remember what it cost me to leave, and I realize I can't pay that price again." He nodded, squeezing my hand. "Then keep moving forward. You're good at that." That afternoon, when we got home, I found a letter in my mailbox. The handwriting was shaky, but unmistakable. My father. For a long moment, I just held it, tracing the ink like it might bite. Then I opened it. "Elena, I know about the restraining order. My lawyer said a letter was allowed. I've been doing community service at the Disability Center for 10 months now. I've met people, kids, veterans, parents, who live with more grace and strength than I ever understood. They've taught me more about dignity than I ever taught you. I used to think I was angry at the world for what happened to you, but the truth is I was angry at myself. I failed as a father. I turned your pain into my punishment and made you carry it. I wanted control because I didn't know how to love someone I couldn't fix. You were never broken, Elena. I was. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope someday you'll believe that I see you now, for who you are, not what I lost. Be happy. You earned it. Dad." I read it 3 times. Once as the hurt daughter, once as the adult woman who'd built her own peace, and once as someone who finally understood that apology doesn't always mean reconciliation. It just means acknowledgement. I placed the letter in my drawer, not to forget it, but to let it rest. A few months later, Austin visited from college in Colorado. He brought photos, Victoria's baby girl, tiny and pink, named Sabrina. "She's actually really sweet," he said, smiling awkwardly. "Vic's been in therapy trying to do better. She told me to tell you she's sorry for everything." I nodded, the name echoing through me like a soft chord. "Maybe someday," I said. "Not now, but maybe." He looked relieved. "You're happier here, huh?" "Yeah," I said, smiling faintly. "For the first time, my life feels like mine." That night, Cameron cooked dinner, grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, and as the rain tapped against the window, he handed me a small gift box. Inside was a bracelet made of recycled wheelchair spokes, polished silver glinting under the light. "I had it made for you," he said. "Not to remind you of what happened, but of how strong you were after." I traced the smooth metal, my throat tightening. "You're unbelievable." He smiled. "No, you are." For a moment, I felt everything come full circle. The girl in the broken chair, the woman standing in her own light, the silence between those 2 versions filled with courage. A year after the verdict, the local Disability Rights Center invited me to give a talk on independence and resilience. When I stepped up to the podium, I thought of my father sorting equipment in the same building as part of his service hours, probably just down the hall. Maybe he would hear my voice through the walls. Maybe that was enough. Sometimes, late at night, I still replay the sound of that hammer. But now, it doesn't make me flinch. It reminds me of everything that followed, the strength, the rebuilding, the quiet triumph of being seen. Because that night wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. So I'll leave you with this question. Have you ever had to choose between who your family wanted you to be and who you truly are? If you ever face that crossroads, I hope you remember this. Choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. And sometimes, survival is the most beautiful rebellion of all.